one of the super chats I'm going to read right now just because it fits.
Go ahead.
This super chat I saw, it said, how did Marianne become the one? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Honestly, because we explained it. Marianne became the one because she got media friends in independent media. It was a smart move on her behalf. When she ran for president in 2020, she decided to come on a lot of these people's show. She decided to befriend a lot of these people because she was playing the long game. Very, very smart. So then in 2024, she had people immediately manufacture consent and anoint her in a very anti-democratic way, in a very Hillary Clinton DNC kind of way, where like, we're going to anoint our friend here. This is the candidate. This guy we're going to be around. This is the only reason why people talk about Marianne. It's because of this. It's because of this Bernie media industrial complex. No one on the hood, no one in the streets, no one in third parties, no Marxists, no communists. Like, nigga, we can't wait to Marianne Williamson run. Nigga, just the boutique professional managerial class. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, and I must say, you know how Z, the girl Z, co-host. I must say in the beginning, like the first 20 minute of the show, she does say Marianne Williamson did say she would do the dirty break or something like that, which is just not. That's just not true. Or she would go third party if they didn't.
Why
That's just
would
not
you
true.
guys even want your third party leader to be someone who don't even fundamentally believe in third parties?
Right.
My interview exposed that she don't fundamentally believe in third parties. She yearned for the days of the Democratic Party. Big shout out to Dude Dissident. They did a great breakdown of our conversation, and they explained how, like, yeah, her when she talked about how she had this nostalgia of the Democratic Party, it's like, what the fuck that had to do with the conversation? You have a nostalgia of the Democratic Party that has nothing to do with the fact the Democratic Party is corrupt right now. So you guys want to anoint a third party leader that's weak at advocating for third parties? Jill Stein, who friend the show, who I voted for, who is an amazing leader, she is great at debunking the two-party duopoly nonsense. The reason they stopped inviting her on CNN because she had 7% at one point because they used to invite Jill Stein on, and she used to destroy these people. They took her off the TV. They banned her because she had 7%, almost got the federal funding that she needed. I showed that receipt many times. So you guys want to anoint Marianne. Imagine if she did do the dirty break, she go third party, and then she get grilled, and then she can't even defend third parties because she don't believe in the idea. Right. So if we're gonna have a third party leader, we need someone who not only believes it in their mind, spirit, and soul, but someone who's gonna work on it from the beginning to build the momentum in the working class movement that is needed. They want to make a shortcut where let's get media exposure and hopefully we can build a movement out of nowhere. There's no vision. So why would you even want that person to do the dirty break for you? But go ahead, CJ. Let's continue.
I also think they might have some self-inflicted wounds here. I mean, the Washington Post story points out, this is Mo Elite, he's with the DNC Rules Committee, on Biden trying to knock New Hampshire off as the first primary state and put South Carolina in its place. Quote, I think this ought to put even more pressure on the New Hampshire Democratic Party to figure out how to get this done. If I were them, I'd be very careful right now about giving out the impression that they are opening the doors to challenging the president. But the New Hampshire primary, the Democratic Party head in New Hampshire has said, yeah, you trying to bump us out is actually going to embolden a primary challenge because people in New Hampshire take their place as the first primary state very seriously. Biden, I know some people don't like the word. He's trying to rig it, put South Carolina first to benefit him.
Yes. And, he loves to postulate, this is all about having more diversity in the Democrat. Come on, dude. We see what you're doing here. You performed like shit in Iowa. You performed like trash in New Hampshire. You got like 5th place. And so you don't want them to have a say because you don't want to hear.
Go ahead.
Only thing I said, this is the funniest part of the whole conversation. I'm glad we watched the because here, this is the part of the conversation where they make the argument that Biden and the Democratic Party is rigging the 2024 primary because South Carolina went heavily for Joe Biden, and they will again, or any neoliberal the Democratic Party and Jim Clyburn endorsed. So the Democratic Party is going to put South Carolina first and then put Joe Biden weak states last. And that is what they're covering right now. So this shows that they are stacking the field against the progressives. And I haven't heard a strategy for the progressives to defeat this yet. But So this shows that they know that Marianne Williamson and the progressives won't win in this rigged primary, but then they're going to criticize third parties because they say, well, you're not going to win third parties. But you just admit the Democratic primary is rigged. So if we're gonna run a race where we know we're not gonna lose, let's run a race where we are exposing the two-party duopoly and we don't have to sign a contract where we have to endorse the guy at the fucking end. Let's continue.
And what I said also about this whole rigging of the race and primaries, it's like, to me, this is a nothing burger. Is like whatever state goes first. What is that going to do? They're going to create whatever ending they want. And you saw it this time. What did you hear? Nobody has ever won the presidency after losing New Hampshire and Iowa. But magically it happened that year that Biden won it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like stuff that never happened before. They just going to make it happen because they're a private corporation. They can do whatever they want. Literally. Nothing's going to happen. The Democratic Party is a private corporation. So in their primaries, they can do whatever they want. Super delegates, dark money, nothing. So I don't get it. I don't get it.
There's a one to tank party. There's an article. I'll report on this 1,000 times. It's been a while. Here it is. I might be ad block, but I'm gonna share this real quick. It's a very old story.
Yeah, let me put this down.
Because I won't be able to read it because from the New York Times. So the New York Times reported. You guys see the ad block here. This is like right after Bernie Sanders won Nevada, when he was riding high. They came out with this article. Democratic leaders willing to risk party damage to stop Bernie Sanders. So even if Bernie quote unquote won and the establishment didn't soundly defeat them with their newfound dark money strategy, apparently. Even then, they still would have rigged it. They still would have rigged it against them, and they know that. But go ahead. I just want to ask.
So, what do you think the ruling class? So, what do you think the ruling class cares about? Being embarrassed in front of silly voter workers, or losing the election? Come on, man. They don't care if you see them and they come out and be brazenly rig the election and then there's backlash. Who cares? They don't care as long as their installed person, dementia or not, like Joe Biden, is in. They don't care. Workers are mad. Oh, well, they don't care. Let's go back to this interview, Nick.
What they have to say. So you put a state that you are taking for granted effectively in South Carolina, you want to put them at the front of the line. I think this calling that this is about diversity, it's so transparent that it's really just a power play. So yeah, people in New Hampshire are extremely pissed, not just the party leadership. I think that's part of what's being reflected in this poll is they feel like they're being shoved aside. They feel like they're being ignored. And it's not going to be easy to pull off either, by the way, because there's actually state law in New Hampshire that it has to be like the first primary state in the country. And so
let me just say this because it's on my mind. This is another reason, like all of these intricate things and steps and all this all these things you have to do because the system is so corrupt. Why not just go third party? You have all of these. We have to, leverage this. We got to do this within your own party. And it feels like, Nick, it's bogged down with all of this bureaucracy and steps and maneuvering so that you don't get nothing done. You're constantly having to talk long periods about just procedural stuff, just to do this way. Go ahead.
And the professional managerial class is okay with that because they're paid handsomely during this. They're paid very well in the process of doing this. Their needs are taken care of. Meanwhile, the workers, we are tired of this shit. But let's continue to go through these procedures. About to get paid again. And we man, we're struggling, we broke, we hungry right now, we need healthcare. No, don't worry, we just gotta go through the procedures. I know them and Democrat Party really hard to work with, aren't they? And let me take that direct deposit right in my pocket. Right there. So what we gotta do is they keep working the party. It's like you see how they continue to win and how much money is Marianne Williamson and Crystal Ball worth. So it's okay for them to continue to go through this bullshit that they know not gonna work because their material needs are more than taken care of. Meanwhile, people like us, I covered the Home Depot boxes. I saw some people like, oh my God, Nick Cruz says he's a socialist Marxist, but he had Home Depot boxes here. That's my brother's boxes because he has to live here because we're broke. So he had to take boxes, and my brother lives here because he otherwise be homeless. That's the reality. So
I love how people think they're critiquing you, and you're like, what?
You're working class, bro. Like us, people who are broke, people like me who don't have health care, I don't care about your procedures. I want you to explain with critical thinking skills and logic how your strategy makes sense. And through many live streams, and like this one as well, we explain to you guys why it does not. But then they want to silence the working class using civility politics. So we just go along while they continue to collect their paychecks every 2 weeks, right? I hope you guys understand my point. But go ahead, CJ.
So they are planning to stick with that. And then becomes this big question of whether the DNC is going to censor candidates and try to, harm candidates who compete in that state. Like, are they going to deny them delegates? Are they going to censure them in some sort of way? So this is getting really ugly really fast. The comments from Ray Buckley, who's the longtime party chair in New Hampshire, real heavyweight in terms of like Democratic Party politics. Everybody knows this guy, that he's in there in the Washington Post suggesting like, hey, dude, you, Mr. President, if you take us for granted and you don't campaign here, you could be opening the door for humiliating us to someone like an insurgent candidate, an outsider candidate, maybe potentially like Marianne Williamson.
I love how they keep saying maybe because they don't want to seem like they're forcing it on us when we already could call that shit a long time ago. Like they're not forcing it. Yeah, if she tries, when everybody knows if you are at an exploratory stage, that means you're basically gonna run. You have to find something egregious at that point not to run. But go ahead, Nick.
An insurgent candidate. I'm like, I don't know, baby. I'm just throwing a name out there. I don't know my friend Marianne. just floating some names out there. Surely not me just picking on my friends. Think of everyone you think of. Why didn't they just pick? Why not Chris Edges or something? They like, I don't know, man. I don't know if she's running for sure, but I don't know. Maybe I heard Marianne Williamson. Who you thinking fooling here? Anyway, continue, TJ.
Right. Let me ask you before we move on to the Republicans.
Here goes the question.
Obviously, there's a growing portion of the left who this is a non-starter. They think we're circling.
So I want to set this question.
Look, I'm not looking at you. There's a portion of the left. There's a portion. I don't know who they are. I mean, I don't know, random people, I guess. People looking at us without looking at us.
So this is an obvious setup question to respond to us. So this is PMC's respond to RBN. This is literally what this is because, and I'll explain more as they talk more. But let's let it play a little bit.
The wagons and its insanity to run again within the Democratic Party would want Marianne or somebody else to skip it and run as a third-party candidate. My view is simply, I don't have a problem with a third-party candidate, but I just look at what within the last 5 years has been the closest thing to victory. For everyone's despair and deflation, not so long ago, Bernie was like on the 5-yard line of winning the Democratic nomination. I think Bernie's campaign had some self-inflicted wounds, but Bernie Sanders, I mean, remember, Chris Matthews was...
I must, because I wrote a whole thing on this.
This is ridiculous.
This is... They keep using this argument about Bernie Sanders getting the closest to victory. So the professional managerial class wants us to believe the Democratic Party, the Democratic primary is not rigged. That's what they're trying to
like, Jordan, you was at Iowa. You was at Iowa covering what they did with Pete Buttigieg. And now you guys are gaslighting people that Bernie was almost there. Oh, man, if only we pushed a little bit harder, we could have won. If only we pushed a little harder. Like we just explained, you guys cannot defeat the strategy of dark money. And notice how there's no material. This is what no Marxist analysis does to a motherfucker. There's no analysis of the resources wasted by the working class. Notice how no one can answer this question. Not a single person. Marianne couldn't. Not a single person who against third parties who visit RBN will be able to answer this question. Why should the working class waste another $100 million on an election that you know we will not win? Instead of that money going to mutual aid, strike funds, you guys talking about union drives. That money goes to unions. And you can say, oh, well, already donated to unions. Okay, imagine we got 100 million more. Like, let's talk about strategy. Isn't that more strategic for us to have 100 million more for whatever you donate to the unions, right? If you're a big union person, let's talk about strategy. We need to raise union strike funds.
And then she said in your interview,
we need to raise funds for the working class so people can stay home and then do soft general strikes. If we had a strike fund, more people will be able to take a risk and unionize. So Crystal said she cares so much about unions and the working class movement, the labor movement. How do you think they got those resources? We need more of those resources if you're serious about that. So let's not waste our time running an election that you know deep down inside that you're not going to win. You guys understand? You understand they're never going to address this point in this conversation?
Ever.
Go ahead, CJ.
And let me read something I wrote down about the same topic. They want us to believe the charade that is put on, that is called the Democratic primary, which, by the way, I said this earlier, is ran by private corporations that can do whatever they want to elect whatever primary candidate we want. We saw it with the rigging of Bernie Sanders twice, whether it was with Hillary Clinton or the DNC, or Hillary Clinton through the DNC, or when Obama came in and put his hand around Bernie. The Democratic primary process, Nick, is a story where we already know the end. It's going to be a corporate-owned candidate. We already know that. But this hopeism, Nick, this is what you call this hopeism, has got people really believing in the fantasy that somehow we can come up with a surprise ending to the Democratic primary.
It's pure hopeism. Yeah, it's literally toxic positivity that they're spreading here. Some bullshit that they know that they will profit from. Well, go ahead, CJ.
And hysterical that the Nazis were invading Paris after Bernie won Nevada. He was assumed for like a couple days that he was about to win the Democratic nomination. So it's not so long ago within the Democratic Party, an actual progressive had a chance.
Then they pour dark money in the campaign. Then they coalesce around the candidate and you lost. Then the same thing happened with Nia Turner. Then Nia Turner ran and she was up 20 points, 15, 20 points. Then they coalesce around the candidate, pour a ton of money, and then they lost. So the question needs to be, what is the strategy? And you need to explain this to the working class. And you are owed this. If we're not being mean, people are like, oh my God, you've been mean to a presidential candidate because you're demanding why we should give money to them. You guys fucking serious? So your job is to explain to us, the working class, the people who actually do the work on the campaigns, like I did in Bernie. No one did more than I did in terms of thousands of doors knocked on, organizing in South Carolina. You guys want us to do work. So you explain to me how you got a different strategy that's going to overcome what Bernie Sanders and Nia Turner did not.
And you know what I want to address too, because in that interview, when you were pushing back on this $100 million on Washington, she was like, well, working class, $5 here. She was trying to make it seem like it was only $5. Have you seen the price of eggs lately? Yeah. $5 won't get you a dozen. It won't get you eggs.
And that doesn't address the point. If that working class person only has $5 to give, why shouldn't she give it to mutual aid or a strike fund or for anything else other than a waste of time campaign? And that's the follow-up, and that's the answer they cannot give, because they can posture on these shows about how much they care about the working class movement and how much they care about unions, but put your money where its mouth is. Let's be smart and let's put more money to this movement then, instead of to these fake politicians. And they're so disconnected to the working class, they don't even think this way. They're millionaires. So Chris was like, we can do both. I stand 1,000 to this candidate, I put 1,000 to this candidate, and then I put 1,000 to the strike fund. And then I'm like, okay, what about the people who got limited fund? And I always bring this up, and then I never get an answer, which led Marianne Williamson to say, if you had the same opinion that I do, that you should not vote for her. Remember? That's the answer to this. If you believe the working class should be smart about how they spend their resources, don't vote for me. That's the message of the Marianne Williamson campaign endorsed by Crystal Ball and Jordan Sheridan.